Akayleh, I hope I pronounced your name
Right, yes.
correctly. So artificial intelligence and rapidly developing technologies, as we have been talking about, are impacting our wealth, our health, everything in the world. So you will talk to us about the multi-dimensional impacts of AI-based technologies on global trade. So because which has also negatively been impacted by the latest trade wars, right?
Absolutely.
So the floor is yours.
Thank you. I can walk up. Ladies and gentlemen, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. First of all, I would like to thank the organizing committee for this nice event, well organized, and also special thanks to the students of Erzurum Technical University, smart students in a smart world. So today, inshallah, we are talking about the impact of artificial intelligence on economic inequality, particularly about the impact of artificial intelligence on income inequality, employment and employment share, and structural shifts. So the objective of our study is somehow mix of technical analysis and policy recommendations. Hopefully we will have good points in this. So the purpose of our study, as we just mentioned, is to measure or examine the impact of artificial intelligence on economic inequality, specifically on income inequality, employment, and structural shifts in sectoral analysis. But for this, we have to consider some empirical study, and to conduct this empirical study, we selected a sample of countries in the Middle East, basically 3 countries, namely Jordan, Saudi Arabia, and Turkey. We understand the concept of artificial intelligence, but if we go in a simple, informative way, actually artificial intelligence is the process of using computer and computer-related technologies in different aspects of our life. But as a consequence for this, some people will be negatively affected, some will take the cake. So we try to examine the impact of artificial intelligence on different segments of economies in these 3 countries, basically. Later, I will explain the rationale behind selecting these 3 countries. Our review of literature for empirical studies around the globe can be classified in this topic into 4 areas, which are the relationship between artificial intelligence and automation, and also the relationship or the impact of artificial intelligence on international trade, the impact of artificial intelligence on income inequality and employment, and also the impact of artificial intelligence on structural shifts. Before we go to our empirical study, we can look at some published indexes in this regard, particularly what we call, or what's called, the Global Artificial Intelligence Index. This index was prepared and published by the international institution called Tortoise Media, and this index covers almost 83 countries in the world, depending on the data availability. Almost 83 countries, and ranked. Rank number 1 means the best on the top. Rank number 83, the bottom, performing very bad in terms of artificial intelligence capacity. This is the index. And for this index, we can look at the top 10 countries in the world. In the first rank, the United States, with a score of 100, and followed by China, then Singapore, UK, and till the rank number 10, we have Japan in this list. These are the 10 top countries in the world published based on the index published in September 2024. But unfortunately, data before this on this index is not available, and therefore we'll consider it as just an indicator for us to see where are we at in this artificial intelligence capacity. This index actually is constituted or comprised of group of sub-indices or sub-indexes. Actually, 7 sub-indexes, which are in terms of talent, infrastructure, operating environment, research, development, and also government strategy with commercial ventures or private sector investments in artificial intelligence. These are the top 10 countries, but if we are looking to our sample countries, which are Turkey, Jordan, and Saudi Arabia, we can see here that Saudi Arabia performing in terms of this index, Global Artificial Intelligence Index, ranked number 14, and Turkey ranked number 34, Jordan ranked number 63, I think. And the other sub-indices as are shown in this graph. This is measured on the, if we say the left-hand side of the graph, but on the right-hand side of the graph, we measure the score of each country out of 100. The score of Saudi Arabia is 20 out of 100, in comparison with the US, which is 100. Then Turkey score is 39, and 11, and Jordan 7 scores out of 100. This index can be taken as a measure to start with. Now we move to our theoretical base for our study, which can be constructed based on 4 areas or 4 possibilities. The first possibility is that we know artificial intelligence, as intended, should lead to business growth, higher quality, better life for all. This is the assumption that we assume for artificial intelligence. But in fact, we have a lot of negative consequences coming out of artificial intelligence. For example, we can go to the second possibility, which is that artificial intelligence may negatively affect income inequality. Income equality. We have to be aware of these 2 concepts, income inequality and income equality, which are the opposite. Income inequality means that the inequality and the divergence between and gaps between people and nations is widening. This is the income inequality. But income equality means that the income is distributed in a fair, better way. This is what we need to keep in mind always. This is the second possibility that we have. The third possibility we can look at is the impact of artificial intelligence on income inequality in terms and employment share, sectoral employment share, according to classification, international classification by World Bank and IMF. Basically, the traditional 3 sectors are agriculture, industry, and service. We want to see how these structural shifts occurred in the light of the ongoing artificial intelligence adoption tools. So these 4 possibilities will pave the way for our empirical study, which means that our study will focus on answering basically 4 questions. These questions are: do artificial intelligence investments affect international trade? Not the other way around. We are not looking at the effect of international trade. It is a wide topic. And the second question is to answer is, do the adoption of artificial intelligence tools affect income inequality in these 3 countries at least, as a sample from the Middle East? And the third question is, what is the effect of investments on the aggregate employment or total employment in each country? The fourth question that we are going or try to answer is the impact of, or what is the effect of artificial intelligence to create structural shifts that will lead to some subsectors of the economy to be harmed or to be negatively affected. To answer these questions, we have some hypotheses to test. First of all, each question has its own hypothesis to test. The first thing is that we need to assume that artificial intelligence investments do not affect international trade. This is assumption. We want to test this. This is called in as those people who are professional in statistical and econometrical analysis, this is called the null hypothesis and the alternative hypothesis. I will not go through this very professional way. We are talking in general language, and therefore the second hypothesis will be the adoption and implementation of artificial intelligence tools and investment do not affect income inequality. The third hypothesis is that artificial intelligence is not going to affect employment level at the aggregate level for countries or sample countries. The fourth hypothesis we are going, inshallah, to test or to examine in this study is that the artificial intelligence investments does not create economic structural shifts that affect the sectoral share of employment of the sample countries. You can observe here that we are now talking about artificial intelligence investments. I did not take the just mentioned global artificial intelligence index because we have it only for 1 year. So I need to have a sample series in order to test our hypothesis. To test our hypothesis, don't be afraid of these mathematical forms. I will just show them, and I will jump very quickly to our analysis. Generally speaking, that here we have our dependent and independent variable that we are going to test. Trade openness, TO, it is a measure for international trade. We will take it as a measure for international trade. Trade openness measure simply is the export of any country plus imports divided by GDP. GDP is the gross domestic product in any economy. So we want to see the effect of artificial intelligence on international trade. And for artificial intelligence, our proxy here is the artificial intelligence investments as a share or over population, which we call it artificial intelligence investments per capita. So this is our independent variable. We want to see its effect on international trade. But we have other set of variables like GDP, gross domestic product. This is another explanatory or control variable. We will take it. Don't look at these three Ds, D1, D2, D3, are dummy variables. Dummy variables. These dummy variables, we are using them for a model called fixed effect model because we have 3 countries. Some of them are big, some of them is small. Some of them is oil producing country, some of them is non-oil producing country. So each country has its own specific characteristics. And therefore, to adjust or control for this, we use something called fixed effect through dummy variables. D1 means that if the country is Jordan, D1 equal 1. And Saudi Arabia and Turkey equal 0. D2 means 1 or equals 1 if the country is Saudi Arabia and 0 for other countries. D3 equals 1 if the country is Turkey and is 0 elsewhere for other countries. And these are the parameters we are going to test. The second specification, according to an econometrics model that we are going to test, is the income inequality, the effect of artificial intelligence on income inequality. For this, I use Lin-Gini. Lin means natural logarithm Gini index or Gini coefficient, which measures the income inequality and it is recognized by the World Bank and by some other international institutions. We will see the effect of artificial intelligence investments on income inequality. And for income inequality, the measure or the proxy is Lin-Gini, which is natural logarithm of Gini coefficient. The rest of the variables are the same, just to explain them now. The third one, or the third specification, the third hypothesis that we need to test is the effect of artificial intelligence on aggregate employment, total employment for each country. For this, our dependent variable is aggregate employment as a share of population. We divide total employed persons over population. We will get AEP, which is aggregate employment to population ratio. This is also will be regressed on a set of independent variables. The control variable is GDP. Another explanatory variable, trade openness or international trade again. We want to see its effect on employment. Our main variable is artificial intelligence investments per capita, which is here as a fraction. Then these, we just said that these are dummy variables. The fourth specification we will examine is the effect of artificial intelligence on employment share in agriculture. Employment share in agriculture, and the employment share in agriculture is simply total employed persons, formal and informal. Total employed persons in agriculture sector divided by total employment in the country. And I will discuss later from where we get this data. Yes, this is therefore. Okay, again, we will see the effect of artificial intelligence investments on agricultural share. The share of employment in industrial sector will be also another field to examine. Likewise, but we explain ESI means employment share in an industry. We will, in the same definition, divided by total employment, we will get it. The sixth and final specification, econometric specification that we are going to test is the impact of artificial intelligence on employment share in services sector. Yeah. Our data, our sample countries, as we just mentioned, are three countries: Saudi Arabia, Turkey, and Jordan. Why did we select this? Frankly speaking, in the beginning, we should select larger number of countries, larger than three countries. And it is very nice if we have all Middle East countries, for example, or all MENA countries, Middle East and North Africa, Asian countries. Why not if we have a panel data for the whole world? But there is a lot of problem when you panel these data all together. You will get a lot of problems associated with data. So it's better to go to this scale. Another rationale behind selecting these data is that these three countries are in the Middle East, which we can generalize 50%. And relatively, these three countries are stable in economic terms and in political terms, relatively. So we can select, that's why, or this is the rationale behind selecting these three. Our resources for data, we have more than 10 variables. And we need data of 14 years. This is the regression that we have done. For 14 years, for these three countries, for GDP and export and import, our data are from United Nations Conference on Trade and Development, which is called UNCTAD. Data on investments are from OECD Artificial Intelligence Database. Our data for population from World Bank. Data for Gini coefficient, a measure for inequality, was taken from United Nations University, World Institute of Development Economics Research. Data on share of agricultural employment, industrial employment, service and total employment are taken from International Labour Organization. Okay, now, based on these specifications and these data, we run our regression models and we reach to these results. This is the summary of the results for the panel data analysis. Just I will explain what is going on here in simple language, that we look at our first job here is to see what is the impact of artificial intelligence investments on international trade. The result says that there is a positive relationship between artificial intelligence investments and international trade. Means artificial intelligence affects positively international trade. And 100%, this is what the data tells us, 100% increase in artificial intelligence investments will lead to 0.5% increase in international trade, positively. This may go in line with the theory. GDP as another control variable has a negative and significant impact on international trade. Our three dummy variables are high value and significant. Just to tell that this high value and statistically significant coefficient means that our use of fixed effect model is valid. So we can rely on this result and build on it. How much this result is reliable? 95% of the variation. 95% of the variation in international trade is attributed to the set of these variables. This is our first result. Second, now we come to income inequality. as we said, we use Gini index as a measure or a proxy for income inequality. The result here is that artificial intelligence has a negative impact. Artificial intelligence has a negative impact on what? On income inequality. Means it has a positive impact on income equality. It is in favor of income, particularly in these three countries. Why? Based on the data we analyzed. This is for future research. We recommended later that we need to go through, deeply through these results, why is going on. But statistically insignificant. International trade positively affecting income inequality means, which is true. International trade and today's globalization is bridging or widening the gap between haves and have-nots. It's widening the gap between haves and have-nots. China recording very high growth rates all over the world. But the income convergence between different sects inside China is widening. 85% of the world GDP or growth is going to only 10% or 15% of the world population. This is one outcomes of the globalization, which is we need trade. We want to trade, but we want fair before free. We want fair before free trade. This is one of the consequences that policymakers should think how to minimize the negative effects of these aspects in economy. Okay. This is just we are mentioning now. Now we come to the third dependent variable, which is total employment. We run the regression, and the result is, as you see here, investment in artificial intelligence has a positive but insignificant effect on employment level. Means that as we increase investments in artificial intelligence, employment level will increase, or in other words, unemployment decreases. But this is statistically insignificant. Yani, we need to look at maybe data somehow wrong, or we have some econometrical issue in this regard. International trade, again, positive but insignificant, and the rest of the variable are control variable and fixed effect variable. Yes. Now let's look at how artificial intelligence is affecting structural shifts from one sector in the economy to other sector. We will see. But before we go to that, let's have a look at how many minutes left for me.
You are already exceeded your time, but I'm being tolerant here.
Okay, I'll try to.
Yeah, just take your time.
Thank you very much. Here we have a graph before we go to the sectoral analysis to see how the employment share in the three countries. The first here on the left, we have employment share in agriculture in Jordan, ESAG. Employment share in industrial sector in Jordan, next. Then employment share in service sector in Jordan, followed by employment share in agriculture in Saudi Arabia, employment share in industrial sector in Saudi Arabia, employment share and so on, employment share in agriculture, ESAT, employment share in agriculture in Turkey, employment share in industrial sector in Saudi Arabia, in Turkey, and last, employment share in service sector in Turkey. If we look at this graph, we can see that employment share in agriculture is always decreasing in all countries as a share. Number of employed person in the sector divided by total employment in the country. For example, in Jordan, it was decreasing, as you see, but it's already very low share, with decrease from 3.87% to a low of almost 3.2% during the period 2010 till 2023. Followed by, if we look at Saudi Arabia, for example, again, employment share in agriculture is decreasing from almost 6% to a low of 2.8%. Employment share in Turkey, but Turkey is performing very well in terms of agricultural and economic diversification. Here is the evidence. Look at the agriculture sector. There is a fall. Yes, there is a fall in employment share in agriculture, but still, Turkey is performing very well in terms of agricultural production and employment, because we see the employment share here is decreasing from 24% and stood at 14.7% in 2023. Other sectors, as you see here, industrial sector, again, traditional the industrial sector is falling, employment share is falling in all the three countries. But if we look at services, it's booming in all the three countries, increasing. This is what we call structural shifts. Does artificial intelligence have anything to do with these structural shifts? We will see it now. Okay. How can I go through?
It's not working?
Regression of that impact of investment in per capita employment. This is the total effect of artificial intelligence on employment in general, employment level. And we see that there is a negative and statistically significant impact of artificial intelligence in employment share in agriculture sector, where we see that 100% increase in artificial intelligence investments lead to 20% decrease in employment share in agriculture sector. This is statistically significant. We can rely upon this data. How much? 99% confidence level. Secondly, international trade has a positive but insignificant impact. I am not that much looking now at these variables, but we are focusing on the artificial intelligence because it is, and I don't want to be nervous me and then shoot me out here. So let's move directly to the effect of employment share of the industry. Now we come to industrial sector. It is like, simply like the agricultural sector. Look at the share here. This is the outcome. The effect of artificial intelligence on employment share in industrial sector is negative effect. Negative but statistically insignificant, which means that 100% increase in artificial intelligence will lead to 1% decrease in employment in services sector. We will talk about this now. It is simply like the case of agriculture sector. There is evidence for structural shifts from these traditional sectors to services or high-tech services sectors, because production is moving there. And we have seen a lot of people, mashallah, talking here from yesterday and today about the artificial intelligence, and they are happy about that. Artificial is booming. We are happy also, but we want the pros of artificial intelligence to be distributed all over the world for every sector of the people. And therefore, this study focusing on the structural shifts again here. Okay, this is what we just discussed. Now we move to the last specification, which is the effect of artificial intelligence on employment share of services sector. In contrast to the case of employment in agricultural sector and industrial sector, we can see the result on industrial sector, in service sector, positive and highly significant impact of artificial intelligence on services sector. Because a lot of activities, a lot of economic activities are moving to this sector. Where we have here, if the artificial intelligence increases by 100%, artificial intelligence investments, this will lead to 21% increase in employment share in services sector, which means that there is a structural shift from agriculture and industry to service and high-tech services sector. This is the conclusion about these results. I'm trying to go directly to the conclusion. Here we have some concluding remarks for our study. We find everybody of us can figure out that artificial intelligence speed is spreading all over the world. Adoption of tools and different tools of artificial intelligence. The second is that we have already examined the influence of artificial intelligence on international trade, income inequality, total employment, and sectoral employment share. We have found all these results. For this, we can recommend some recommendation for policymakers and some for future research. For policymakers, first of all, we should think in how to put forward regulation policies that guarantee the advantage and the merits of artificial intelligence to be distributed all over sectors of the economy so that nobody will be left behind. This is the first conclusion and recommendation. The second is about research. Before research, again, another recommendation for policymakers is that in order to reduce the negative effect on those segments of the economy who have been negatively affected by artificial intelligence or what's so-called structural shifts, there should be a taxation system, effective and efficient taxation system that can be imposed on those people who are taking the cake, total share of the cake, and to distribute it to other negatively segments of the economy, affected segments of the economy. For researcher, of course, we have no any work is complete. We have a lot of shortcomings, limitations, but based on what can we see from this study, we have some shortcomings or limitations. For future research, we recommend specified research by sectoral analysis at a global level through qualitative and quantitative measures to avoid any shortcomings associated with these studies. And therefore, we can close this topic by saying thank you, everybody, and thank you very much.
Mr. Akayleh, thank you very much for your in-depth analysis on how AI is impacting international trade as well as income equalities. We kept the ladies waiting, so I want to quickly go to the Madam Ambassador, Merve Safa Kavakçı. She is also the first Deputy Secretary General of the Black Sea Economic Cooperation. I believe you'll give us an insight on how regional cooperation mechanisms like the Black Sea Economic Cooperation and regional development can help us to get through these hard times. The floor is yours.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Ms. Aisha, if you allow me, I'd like to take this opportunity to say a